Hi, it's Thursday, May 1st, and we're tracking two systems in the West Pacific today. We have Invest 99W sitting just west of Palau this morning, and this is now on its northwestward track and will come ashore in the Philippines in a couple of days. And development seems unlikely on this system. We'll likely just see some thunderstorm activity, scattered showers and storms coming into the Philippines with this system, but we will touch on the chance that the system does become a tropical storm over the next few days in this video. We've also got the system behind it. This is dubbed Invest 90W by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. This system is also going to track northwest and will likely stay east of the Philippines and well east of the Philippines, and has probably better odds of developing into a tropical storm as it comes further north into the open waters of the Pacific. And we'll talk about this one briefly after 99W. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a close look at Invest 99. You can see here's a system centered again just west of Palau on this map, and you can see we have plentiful southerly winds just west of Palau, turning into more northerly winds on the west side of what appears to be a weak area of low pressure. It might just be more of an open trough axis. We do see on the south side maybe some weak westerly winds, but scatterometer passes show that this wind is probably not too strong. You can see here, this is one from last night. And you can see if you know how to read wind barbs, these winds are more 0 to 5 knots. Maybe they strengthen a little bit, but they're not very strong at all. And this is a not very well structured area of low pressure that 99W has. And this is going to be a long and drawn out process for the system to actually be able to become a tropical storm. And it doesn't seem like it's going to have enough time. Now, environmentally, the system has a pretty good environment to do so. You can see maybe some slight easterly shear from these thunderstorms blowing up further northeast, but this is a very weak shear. You can see on this GFS sounding, it's in the range of 10 to 15 knots. That's not inhibitive for this system. And we can also see that in this moisture profile on the SKU-T plot, which if you don't know how to read this, it's just the red and green lines. The red is temperature, the green is dew point, and the further away these lines are, the drier the environment, and vice versa. The closer they are, the more moist the environment. And you can see they're never really spread apart very much in the atmosphere, and the overall relative humidity throughout most of the atmosphere is around 84%. And we can even confirm this further by looking at water vapor imagery with all this kind of teal coloring around the system being good and deep moisture. And really the only dry air problems that we have is further north, and this is not going to be a problem for our storm because we don't really have a very strong shear. So the issue really is that the system just needs an area of low pressure to pick up the moisture off the ocean and build it into thunderstorms. You can see if we look at this close-up loop again, we just have a ton of sporadic thunderstorms blowing up, and these are often coming down fairly quickly. You can kind of see we have this outflow boundary here, another one here south of Palau, another one over here, and these are thunderstorms that are going up and then they're immediately collapsing. And what the system needs to do to become a tropical storm is it needs to close off this area of low pressure and strengthen it so that it can have a better feed of moisture off of the ocean surface. And once that happens, you can then get more and more convection, re-moistening the environments if there is any dry air, and then that can lead to more sustained thunderstorm activity, which can then lead to tropical development. But the good news for the Philippines is this takes a lot of time, and this will likely run out of time. And you can see the GFS, which was previously very adamant on the system's development, is now joining the European model in being very low on development on this, and really it doesn't develop it at all anymore. You can see this is the low level spin plot from the GFS. This is our area of low pressure, or our trough, whatever you want to call it. And you can see over the next couple of days, it comes into the Philippines and really does not close off into a low. For example, what you want to see for a tropical storm forming is something more like this up here east of Japan. It's a non-tropical low, but it's more concentrated area of spin, more concentrated area of low pressure. We don't see that happening on the model on this. It just stays very broad and likely is just not able to become a tropical storm with the time it has. It needs more time over water and is likely just to run into the landmass and get disrupted further from that development. Now, it will be bringing some pretty good moisture with it. You can see we do have some pretty deep layer moisture coming along with this system, and this will bring some scattered showers and thunderstorms to the Philippines over the next few days, which could lead to some localized flooding issues. But in terms of high impacts from the system, it's not expected here because even if the system does form into a tropical storm, it likely won't have much time to intensify at all before interacting heavily with land, which would cause the system to weaken anyways, even if it became a tropical storm on the lowest odds that it already has right now, which maybe I could give it 10 to 20% chance of doing so, and that may be a bit bullish with the current model guidance because even the GFS is now saying no on development, and that is now all global models saying no to development of this system. Now, we may have to watch it in longer range. You can see eventually we do see the spin come further west into the South China Sea, and the environment may remain favorable for it to try and develop, but we'll have to see on that. Not a lot of models are saying yes on this anymore. The European used to be very adamant on it. If we look at the European ensemble, we still have a few members saying maybe, but that's something we'll have to see going into next week. And if that does happen, we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so now we're going to move further east as we have a new invest further east of 99W. You can see here maybe some broad, very low spin in the the map here. And if we take a closer look at this system 90W just have similar problems to 99W. We don't really have a very strong area of low pressure, and we just have this kind of sporadic thunderstorm activity blowing up around this. Now, the difference with this system is that it has more time to build an area of low pressure, which can then allow it to later on become a tropical storm, like I just talked about with Invest 99W. This system is going to be pushing northwest alongside 99W, but the difference here is it's not going to be running into a landmass. It's going to be staying in the open ocean. And while we don't have a lot of model guidance being very adamant on this system, I'd say this definitely has a better chance of formation over the next few days as it comes northwest, as the environment is forecast to be fairly favorable for this as it comes northwest. Now it's lifting north because, as we talked about a few days ago, we have kind of a pair of troughs coming into southern Korea and Japan, and this is setting a western edge on this ridge further north of these two systems, and that's bringing these systems further north. So you can see that as the system continues tracking northwest, the GFS does see the system developing between the Mariana Islands and the Philippines, and we get a tropical storm on the model. Now, other models are not as adamant on this. The European model is not showing development at all of the system. You can see this in the European ensemble. You can see where they initialize, but they don't really see much in the way of development. Now, having said that, the GFS operational, it does form the system, but the GFS ensemble guidance not overly strong on this. And from what I can gather, the reason for this is just that it is not able to close off an area of low pressure in a good amount of time on these models. And like the European does not really see this hanging around much longer. Now, we have seen in the past couple of days, this has been more convectively active than, say, 99W. So maybe the GFS is more onto something here, though having said that the GFS is, in its ensemble, less enthusiastic on this. So it's kind of a watch and wait type thing. We'll need to see if this convection that we have is able to sustain the weak low that this system has right now. It's entirely possible that we don't see development out of the system, but we'll keep an eye on it. But the good news is with this, because it's tracking north right now, it's going to likely remain in the open Pacific and not be a threat to land if it does develop. And we may see if it does develop, we'll have to see what happens. You can see that GFS is kind of taking this west, but a lot of models in long range are taking this out to sea, maybe get a nice typhoon peak out to sea as well. But as of right now, there's no real threat for the system to come into any land areas. If we do see something like the GFS is trying to show here, where it shows a system that may be trying to come towards the Philippines, we'll talk about that when it happens. But as of right now, no imminent threat, and it's just kind of a watch and wait type thing to see if the system actually does develop. That's all that I've got for today. Stay safe in the Philippines as this system comes in, 99W. Not going to be a tropical storm, but certainly could cause some localized flooding issues. And if you're under any flood alerts from Pagasa, make sure you heed them and take the necessary action when those are issued. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.